I mean, if we look at the Carolinas as a whole, a lot of these teams and these schools are playing this evening. And while there's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, we want to make sure parents, students, staff, teachers, whoever, have the information they need to be safe. And here on the program, she goes by one name now. We don't even call her by her last name because it's just one name. This is how it is. Dr. Kelli is here. Hello. She's the founder of Brain Talk Foundation, but also a nationally certified speech language pathologist. Welcome back, Dr. Kelli.
Thank you for having me. Always happy to be here.
Do you like the one name, Dr. Kelli?
Yes, shortening it, decreasing the risk of mispronunciation.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, that's the reason that Dr. Kelli, so you don't have to worry about the last
No,
name.
it's Dr. Kelli Uitenham.
Yes, Dr. Kelli Uitenham, but Dr. Kelli, so that everybody can say it without having to have the anxiety. That's the thing people ask me before, like, is this the right way to say it?
Famous people have one name. Cher.
I am not famous. I am a young lady with a dream to raise awareness.
Cher, Dr. Phil, Madonna, Rihanna.
She goes by Dr.
Beyonce. I'm just saying,
Dr. Kelli Uitenham trying to raise awareness.
Well, I know we're joking right now. Dr. Kelly's like family here on the program, so we love to joke with Dr. Kelli. But we want to talk about something serious. High school football, yes, is exciting. I'm actually going to hit the road right after this, right after work, to Charleston, South Carolina area to see my nephew play in his first varsity game. So he's excited about it. I feel like we DM back and forth about this topic, concussions, TBI. What should parents think about, coaches think about? Because you go to different schools and you talk to these players, you talk to these coaches and these parents. What should they be thinking about right now?
Well, I love that you and your nephew are having the brain talk, so that's fantastic. And parents and coaches, athletes themselves, they all need to be having conversations around, yes, having fun and all of the things that sports bring, but also the safety portion of it. So you can have fun and play football and make great memories, but we want them to do it safely. So that includes making sure that the equipment that they're using is appropriate, that it is up to date and safe for them to be using. We want to make sure that the coaches are actually trained in concussion, in brain injury, so that they know the signs and symptoms, and then wanting to make sure that parents are aware of the signs and symptoms of concussion, because a lot of times now people will say like, oh, like this happened on the field, and they'll look right to me and they'll say, what do they need to go somewhere? Like, what do we do? And the reality is concussion signs can show up hours later, they can show up days later, they can show up weeks, sometimes months later. And so knowing those signs and symptoms and being able to identify them and keep an eye out for them days and weeks after the game has occurred are vital.
What do you learn when you go out to these schools and you're not just like in the classroom, like you're actually on the field and you're talking to these players? Like, what do you take away from that? And what do you learn from those players and those parents?
Great question. It fuels me to keep going because unfortunately there are a lot of people in the audience and in the stands, the bleachers, on the field who don't know the signs and symptoms, and they don't know the basics of how to advocate for themselves. So when they don't have the awareness, there's a lot of times where they don't have that vocabulary so that they can advocate for themselves. I was actually talking to students yesterday, and I was asking, so how many of you know the signs and symptoms of concussion? And of the room of 50, maybe 4 raised their hand, and there was one who had kind of a comme ça, kind of like, I kind of know the signs. And so this was a room of athletes that it spanned the different sports that they played. And so for the majority of them to have no clue what those signs and symptoms are is very telling. And so that fuels me to continue to do the work that I'm doing to raise awareness. And it also fuels me to continue to do the work. I am very blessed and happy to be able to be approaching this work from multiple angles. So I do work full-time as an assistant clinical professor at Northeastern University, our Charlotte campus. You've been to our Charlotte campus for Brain Talk Day. And we are very proud that we are in the process of finalizing our concussion clinic so that members of the community can come and receive speech therapy services pro bono. So a huge part of the work that I do is raising awareness that speech language pathologists, which is what I am, we are the cognitive rehabilitative experts. And so a lot of people, I asked the students yesterday, who here thinks about a concussion and thinks like, I need to go see my speech language pathologist right now. Nobody raised their hand.
Go to the urgent care.
Right. You go to urgent care, but again, because a lot of people don't think of speech therapy for that cognitive rehabilitative portion, that part gets missed. And so there's a cognitive component that ends up being impacted. And so there are people who go without when a lot of times these services for speech therapy are provided by, are covered by insurance, but here in the community, Charlotte, at Northeastern University, Charlotte's campus, we have a pro bono clinic where we can provide services.
This is not a question, it was just a thought that popped in my head. You're talking about access, right?
Yes.
Because football specifically, and I know concussions, TBI, it expands across different professions, different sports, but specifically with football is a cheap sport to play. They provide the equipment. You just have to show up.
Yes.
Like you're only spending your time doing this. And so when you add, going to go see a doctor, a lot of people don't have that access, especially somebody within a specialty. Can you speak to that and why that is important for folks to have that access?
Why it's important for them to have the access to which part?
I'm sorry, that was a long question. To have the access to the information, one, and being able to reach out and touch a speech language pathologist, pro bono, no pay.
Yes, yes.
Why is that important for you?
It's important for me. It's important for the world because when you know better, you do better. And so providing that knowledge really can help change and shape athletes' futures because while I always say I do not want athletes to stop playing, I'm not saying banish all sports. I'm a former athlete. I love sports. I'm a lifelong sports fan. I know what sports can do and bring and the opportunities that they can yield. And so I love sports and I want there to be safety within sports and for athletes to live long and prosperous lives and healthy lives. And so having that awareness helps them to make better decisions. So the statement that started my entire mission for Brain Talk Foundation was, I wish I would have known. And so when people do know, now it's their right to make the decisions that they want to make with them. And whether that's to continue to play without precaution, at least you know the risks. Or it could be that a student decides that they're going to play specifically to get into college. They have their mission on what they want to do. It could be the degree. It could be that they do want to play professionally. Again, not trying to discourage that either. The whole point is for safety. So having access to that knowledge means that you know better and you do better. And then having access to free speech therapy care can help with the rehabilitation that they may not even know that they need. And then when we're educating athletes, they have an entire world expanded to them where they're seeing like, hey, like this is what was going on. I'm not crazy. I'm not, there was something that was actually happening, but there's something I can do about it. And that gives confidence, that gives hope, and then that, leads to athletes being able to know more about their bodies and be more true to their bodies and be able to advocate for themselves on and off the field or court.
And you spoke about this before. It's the athlete's mentality to suck it up, be tough, push through.
Yes.
And that's not healthy. That's not a good choice.
It's not the healthiest, but that is the culture, and that's the culture that I hate to use the word pushing back, but that's what this work is pushing against, because that's kind of how we got here, where things are happening to individuals' bodies, their brains, their minds, their moods, and they're shoving it down because they don't want to lose their spot. They don't want to seem weak. They're considering everybody else except themselves. But I always encourage individuals, you're the only one who has to deal with fill in the blank. So if it's, having a difficult time with memory, struggling in classes, you still have to have adequate grades to be able to play sports. And so making sure that you're looking out for yourself, advocating for yourself, including your parents, your caregivers, your educators. Everybody needs to work together as a team to help get these athletes the support that they need.
I want to ask you this because, again, this is a conversation we've been having, the long-term impacts of head injuries, right?
Yes.
I think we chatted about Chris Johnson. I'm blanking on the name of the NFL player who recently passed away from ALS. Is it ever frustrating when you see these stories, or I guess what goes through your mind when you hear these stories about these athletes, specifically football players, who have these, who have like ALS and have these cognitive diseases, like after they play? Like, does that ever get frustrating?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's, I talk about, I've done 6-hour courses on this,
Yeah.
and it's still not enough time. So there's so much information that I want to pour out and raise the awareness so that everybody is able to yield the benefits. I mean, everybody deserves to know this information. That's why I started Brain Talk Foundation, to get that information out through a nonprofit avenue. And then that's also why I wrote the book, The 25,000 Mark. It's Not Just a Concussion. And that talks a lot about what these young athletes could be experiencing. And with the research that I've done and the professional athletes that I've spoken to, bringing those stories all together to help formulate this one story. I did it in story format instead of like research and, the history of brain injury. I figured people would want to read more of a story than like a resource book. But people can see themselves in that. And so the excellent feedback that I've received from readers is that they identify, and they say, it's told from the perspective of, from 3 different perspectives. It tells it from the perspective of the athlete, from the parent, and from the coaches. And so all 3 of those different perspectives, those individuals have reached out to me and say, I see myself in Coach Daniels. I see myself in Brett, who is the football player. I see myself in the parents. And so that means a lot to me, and raising that awareness through the form of a book, through the form of my courses that are available on the website, following me on social media and learning about the different signs and symptoms, all of that helps to combat the frustration that I feel when I hear about cases like what you just mentioned, because it's like an exhale of disappointment and grief, because it's like another one has this diagnosis, another one's life has been changed, and it's not just their lives, it's the lives of their families, of their friends, their teammates, and the fans. These individuals have fans that care about them and follow their careers, and I'm glad that we have such, openness with social media and news coverage now, so that there can be young people who can look and say, this is what happened to my hero, or this is what happened to the individual that my parents followed or may have gone to school with, or whatever their special connection or story is to a specific player. I know that there is heartbreak and loss and grief for the fans that watch that as well. So it's all a heartbreaking experience, but people do send me those stories, and it continues to fuel me to do the work that I do.
And I'm one of those people who's
You do.
Dr. Kelli, a lot of stories.
You do, and I appreciate that.
Of course. Dr. Kelli, hopefully you're sleeping these days. We did the podcast. It aired a few weeks ago, and she doesn't run off of tea or coffee. She does a bunch of podcasts. Every time I pop up, she's doing a podcast, which is great. She has a full-time job. She has a business. She's an author. So, yeah, hopefully you were sleeping these days.
I'm getting to sleep a little bit. The fall semester starts in September.
So she's not sleeping.
I am. We're getting some rest before the fall semester.
Okay, I had to check with Ebony.
Yeah, my manager can vouch for me. Yes, I'm
Okay.
getting some sleep.
Okay, all right. I trust you. I'll take you at your word. Dr. Kelli, as always, let me put some respect in your name. Dr. Kelli A. Uitenham.
Thank you.
I had that. What's the A stand for?
Alexandria.
Dr. Kelli Alexandria Uitenham. Thank you for stopping by, as always. And, of course, you're always welcome back here.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.